Hello, great house. Welcome again to our English first additional language lessons with Miss Lechuti. I hope you have subscribed and you have been viewing all the scenes, and you also looked into how to interpret and answer questions based on My Children My Africa. And we have now reached the conclusion where I'm going to sum up scene Act 2, Scene 4 and 5. Those are the concluding scenes of this play. Now, just a brief summary before we go into the details of my presentation. In scene 4, Isabel comes to visit Thami. She is deeply uncomfortable because of the uprising, but willing to hear whatever Thami wants to tell her. He says that he wants to say goodbye to her, but she's confused since he essentially already did. Remember, he did say goodbye to Isabel when he announced to Isabel that he's quitting the literature quiz competition. And of course, now we know that Mr. M is no more, as he was killed by the mob, if not the comrades, for being an informant during the apartheid era. And we have now reached what we call the denouement. After the main theme, the climax of the book, we go down now in literature, we call that denouement, towards meaning that this is the concluding chapters of the book. If not, not chapters, scenes of the play. And then Thami explained that it's different now, he's leaving town. Now, during their tense final meeting, Isabel and Thami struggled to make sense of recent events. Still, they managed to overcome the community's deep division and meet on their own terms. Remember, it was difficult for them to meet as black and white, since bearing in mind that Thami is associated now with the comrades, so it is quite difficult for him to mix with the whites. Right, and then however they still managed to meet under those difficult circumstances. In fact, Thami's decision to say goodbye before leaving town forever suggests that he deeply values his friendship with Isabel and feels that he owes her an explanation. But also, it's important to note Isabel's emotions here. She is confused and greatly troubled by the fact that Mr. M was killed. So Isabel is tense. She's also angry. She's also all upset and questions why he wants to say goodbye now. He says that Thami already said farewell 3 weeks ago when he ended their friendship. Okay. Now, Isabel says that she thought the reason Thami wanted to meet with her was to talk about the death of Mr. M, not necessarily to say goodbye. She takes out the crumpled newspaper article that reported Mr. M's death, indicating that she carries it with her all the time. That means it shows that she was really saddened by the passing and the brutality that came around with how Mr. M was murdered. Isabel wants to know why such a good, devoted man was killed. Thami tells her that Mr. M had given the names of the action committee members to the police and that these leaders had all been arrested and detained, making him an informer. And of course, this is not new information to us as the audience. We already knew that Mr. M was indeed accused, and then we know that of course he did confess that he did go to the police officer to furnish him with the names of people who were involved in boycotting of classes and comrade. Isabel does not believe that Mr. M was a police spy. Thami tells her that Mr. M told him that he had gone to the police because he thought it would help to stop the violence. And Thami further explained that Mr. M was a police informer and that all the people he named for the police are in jail now. And then Isabel struggles to believe that this could be true, but Thami reveals that Mr. M told him firsthand, and Mr. M only went to the police once, Thami admits, and he was clearly confused and regretted it. At this point in time, Isabel suggests that Mr. M wasn't truly an informer because he was doing what he thought was right. He didn't deserve to be murdered. Thami tells her to watch her language. He wasn't murdered since the people killed him in self-defense. Isabel is furious and speechless. She doesn't believe that an angry mob attacking a helpless man could possibly be considered self-defense. And of course, Mr. M was not armed. The only thing that he had, of course, was to ring the bell. And so therefore, the statement that he was killed in self-defense that is not quite true. With that said, it means that Isabel saw that he saw the manner in which Isabel is reacting to the killing of Mr. M clearly indicates that Isabel saw Mr. M as a role model for how to inspire others and fight for justice. So she's tormented by his death and at the hands of the same community he sought to protect. And this also qualifies as an irony. Because remember, irony is when you say something, but what transpires is actually the contradictory part or contradicts what is intended. Because the same people that he vowed to protect and teach and give a bright future are the same people who ended up murdering him. Because of the apartheid laws and the police violent crackdown in Blackwater, she cannot easily visit the township or learn more about what really happened. Right? Now, they did argue about whether it was fair for Mr. M to be an informer, like I've already stated. And then Isabel insists on calling Mr. M's death a murder, not that of self-defense. Thami feels the people who killed Mr. M did it in self-defense, like I've said. But Isabel reluctantly asked if Thami was present when Mr. M was killed, and if so, did he try to save Mr. M's life? Thami admits he was present and he had tried to save Mr. M. Isabel and Thami both admit that they had loved Mr. M. Thami tells Isabel of his plans to go into exile and join the movement as a fighter. Thami tells Isabel she can be near to the spirit of Mr. M at the top of Wappersberg Pass. Remember, this place is important because this is where Mr. M was inspired to become an educator. So the best way for Isabel to pay respect to Mr. M, since he was murdered, and remember that he was also killed by the mob and burned. So the only way for her to show respect is to go back to Mr. M's roots, which is a place that gave or afforded him an opportunity to dream and ignite that I would say that goal or aspiration to become a teacher. So this place is quite important and significant in this play. Right. And now after their meeting in the last scene of the play in scene 5, Isabel comes to pay her last respect to Mr. M, promising that she will dedicate herself to making her life really useful. She wants him to be proud of her as one of his children. Now you can see how did Mr. M's impact was so rather, I would say, his interaction with Isabel grew in such a way that she is now really connected and deeply moved by his departure, and he even now calls herself one of Mr. M's children. Her final words are, "The future is still us, Mr. M." And in this, he's alone on stage. Isabel announces that she feels close to Mr. M. She's at the top of Wappersberg Pass, and she knows that Mr. M is somewhere north beyond the horizon. To pay her last respect to him, she makes a promise rather than bringing flowers. She remembers Mr. M telling how many people wasted their lives, and she promises that indeed she will do everything she can to make her life useful like Mr. M's. She remembers Mr. M saying that she was one of his children, and she tells him that the future is still ours. Now, at Wappersberg Pass, the place that represented Africa's vast beauty and great promise to Mr. M, Isabel vows to follow in Mr. M's footsteps and strive to fulfill his vision for the future. This shows how, despite his tragic death, Mr. M truly did inspire his children and thereby leaving a lasting impact, if not a lasting legacy, on South Africa, especially in the context of the play on Isabel's. Hence, Isabel continues to vow that is also a model for how white South Africans can become allies in the nation's fight for racial justice. Then finally, her closing line, "The future is still us," represents the sense of hope and collective responsibility for young people to change things for the better, and to hopefully for the country to successfully transit to democracy one day. These are the codes to say I also love him. Doesn't help much to say it now, but I did. You know the two most terrible words in your language, Isabel. He says too late. These are the codes between conversation between Isabel and Thami, where in this scene 4 and scene 5, both of them did do confirm their love for Mr. M. But bearing in mind that Isabel at this point in time, she was rather confused and furious, and very furious at Thami as well. Hence, he said that it's too late to utter those words because Mr. M indeed is normal. And then these are the codes for Mr. M and the moving words to say the future is still ours, which also again shows that Mr. M deposited an impactful legacy that which Isabel vows to adhere to or to carry it through to the promised land, that which is a South Africa that is in a better state. And we look into the character and character development. As I've said, that you must check how characters evolve in the play, affected by the events around them or affected by what is happening around them. Thami and Isabel grew a lot. They grew and developed in the play, and we've got quite a number of evidence to use to support this. We know that Thami was quite an inferior young boy who was always respectful and took orders from Mr. M. But along the way, we saw Thami developing and owning his own voice and being able to stand up for what he believed, as well as Isabel, where Isabel even went to a point where she did self-introspection and she got to understand the challenges of Black society, and she got to also understand the lifestyle and the impact of the racial discrimination and generally the impact of the apartheid system had on the blacks' livelihood. And they, as two teenagers, they did evolve in the play. But why we say Mr. M's character was flat? His character remains the same throughout the play. He even died vowing and upholding his principles, that of words are better than stones, that words are quite powerful than stones to solve things amicably rather than using violence. He's a traditionalist, he's old-fashioned, has a teacher-centered approach, believes teacher teaches, learners must learn and follow instruction. And he did this up until the last day where he met his demise. He still rang that bell, summoning learners to go to school, even in the midst of chaos. Now, I believe that the analysis will greatly assist you to understand the play. Remember, it's quite important to understand the events so that you can be in a good position to successfully respond to questions in your final paper. Thank you once more for tuning in, and thank you for subscribing.